In today's episode of our exploration of the true history of Hindustan, let us continue to review the arrival of the Portuguese and some of the historical facts related to their arrival. In the last episode, we have seen that in spite of those cheap presents which Vasco da Gama had brought to the King of Calicut, a business meeting with the king and his officials did not come to a fine conclusion. Up to that, we have already seen. Now let us continue to see what happened next. So as we have seen in the last episode, the royal court demanded the payment of the goods purchased in gold or silver. And Gama pretended that he could purchase or wanted to purchase the merchandise in compensation or in exchange to what all he had brought with him. That is, all those presents and some of the merchandise he could not sell anywhere else. But such a request was refused or turned down by the king. And he insisted that Gama shall pay customs duty, preferably in gold, like any other traders. But this request from the king practically ended in bad terms between the two. During that period, Portugal has not even a single grain of gold. All the gold and silver, if they have still, were brought from Brazil by looting Brazil after their invasion of Brazil. Vasco da Gama could not pay in gold, and the king of Calicut demanded that he should pay as the Arab merchants used to do, and the terms became bad between the king, the royal court, and Vasco da Gama. And annoyed by this request from the royal court to pay in gold or in silver, Gama took few nayers, that means few members of the royal court, and 16 fishermen by force as hostages and left Calicut on 29th August 1498. After returning in Portugal, a second fleet, which was named India Armada in Portuguese language, was launched in 1500 under the command of Pedro Alvarez Cabral, with the mission of making a treaty with the Samudri of Calicut and setting up a Portuguese factory in the city. However, Pedro Cabral entered into a conflict with the local Arab merchants guilds, and up to 70 Portuguese were killed in that riot. Cabral blamed the Samudri for the incident and bombarded the city. And see what happened when a discussion did not come to a fine conclusion. About 70 people were killed. This Cabral started bombing or firing the city of Calicut. And that also is an indication of the so-called Western culture. Following that incident, Vasco da Gama invoked his royal letter to take command of the 4th India Armada, scheduled to set out in 1502 with the explicit aim of taking revenge upon the king of Calicut and to force him to submit to Portuguese terms. The royal letter was an official authorization from the king of Portugal permitting Vasco da Gama to do whatever he wanted. And having received that authorization from the king of Portugal, the heavily armed fleet of 15 ships and 800 men left Lisbon on the 12th of February 1502. And this fleet was further followed by another squadron in April of the same year, which was led by the cousin of Vasco da Gama, whose name was Estavo Gama, and this fleet included 5 ships. Here we have a picture which shows the pretension of Vasco da Gama in front of the king. But at the first time, he knelt down in front of the king to submit his request. And during this meeting between the royal court and Vasco da Gama, While the king was willing to sign a new treaty, Gama demanded the king to expel all Muslims from Calicut before beginning any negotiation. And that was refused, or that was turned down. And when that request by Vasco da Gama was refused by the king, the real wolf, which was disguised under the skin of the sheep, came out. And the Portuguese fleet then bombarded the city of Calicut for nearly 2 days from the seashore, severely damaging the unfortified city. He also captured several rice vessels and cut off the crew's hands, ears, and noses, dispatching them with an insulting note to the king. And these facts were not included in our social studies lessons. I don't know anybody of you have ever heard of these facts or these true history. In the next episode, we shall review the reason for the Portuguese to move to Goa and settle there and what they did in Goa. So thank you very much for your kind attention to my words. See you in the next episode. Jai Hind.